Great morning, sunshines. Callie Carroll here. We're doing our daily talk. We didn't do a talk yesterday. Well, I mean, unless you listen to a different video, because I was at the endocrinologist having Witten John's second appointment with Denver since his diagnosis a year ago, which is like blind mowing. That's a new one, you guys. It's a new word, blind mowing. Mind blowing to me that he has this like rare disease and we haven't even done another appointment for a year. We've only had 2 of them. But what happened is every single time we were supposed to have an appointment, his chemo would be like changed, and then he couldn't have chemo the same day as that appointment, and they couldn't get us in, blah, 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 whatever. You guys, we're going to talk about a Witten John update today, and you're going to learn about the pituitary. So even if you're like, I don't even know who WJ is, Witten John is, that's okay. You can learn a lot of things right now that I didn't know before that I think are extremely interesting. And maybe I'll do some shorts on this. Maybe I will. That's a good idea. But before we get started, say good morning, sunshine, #GMS. Let me know anything that you're grateful for. I am grateful for peace, you guys, for peace of mind. And I feel so much better about the endocrinology portion of Witten John's disease in Colorado specifically. We found a terrific doctor out in Texas, but long-term wise, insurance isn't going to support that, nor does it support all of it anyways. So after 1 year, we were looking towards finding a permanent home in Denver. So we had our appointment yesterday. It went good. The doctor that we saw was, she was amazing. She was direct yet informative. She was supporting Witten John's, health, but she was also trusting me as a mom to manage this disease because it is so crazy. And it was just good conversation. So I want to talk to you guys about what all of that means and where he's at in his diagnosis, because his AVPD, his arginine vasopressin deficiency, that's something that will be with him for his entire life. Back up, just in case you guys aren't like aware of what happened. Almost a year ago, my son started peeing excessively, like all the time. And it was like he couldn't even sleep. He was peeing so much. As it turned out, we finally took him to the hospital. He had this test done and he has a tumor in his pituitary. So your pituitary is a pea-sized thing right behind your eyes, like right back here, this little tiny 1/3 of an inch thing, almost directly connected to your hypothalamus. Is that right? Was that the right word? Maybe not. Maybe it's a different one. Nix that part, but whatever. It's pea-sized right behind your brain. Okay. So the LCH, so Langerhans cell histiocytosis, his rare cancer got to his pituitary gland. And what happens is your pituitary is supposed to light up and his is dark. If you look at any people with LCH, one of the primary things they're hoping doesn't happen to their child is that they get AVPD or they get a tumor in their pituitary, because that is lifelong no matter what. Well, even though LCH is incurable, it's something that can go away through chemotherapy, right? Where this doesn't have a treatment except for hormonal therapy for the rest of your life. Anyways, so Witten John has AVPD, right? What that means specifically, and now we're going to do a lesson. This is so much fun, right? And I'll tell you everything the doctor said. And I know this is a lot of information, but there's a lot of people following like intricately, and they actually want to know all of it. So it might be too much for some people, but it's good information, like I said. Okay, so your pituitary has a posterior and an anterior. The posterior, the back side, is in charge of 2 different things. It's in charge of your oxytocin, which is your feel-good hormone, right? It's also super supportive when you have babies for breastfeeding, different things, but it is your feel-good hormone. Like oxytocin is super important. And it also produces your arginine vasopressin, which is your vasopressin is what stops your body. It helps your kidneys collect water and then pee, collect water and then pee. So it helps your body appropriately hold water and get rid of it. The AVPD is arginine vasopressin deficiency, which is what Witten has, meaning the backside, the posterior, is dark. So he doesn't produce that hormone. So we take hormonal therapy every single day, which is batshit crazy. It's what I've had the hardest time with endocrinology before. We've had a lot of arguments. Like, it's been a hard journey for me getting to know and creating a relationship with endo, because it's been just so stressful and seemingly painful for my son. We're at a point now where I know how to manage it, but if I weren't here, I don't know what would happen, because it is very confusing. How much I have to dose every single day, depending on conditions, is wildly dramatically different. And even like when I called in earlier, I talked to you guys about this, how the doctor's like, well, I don't know if they're going to give him his medicine. She was very supportive with me. Like, yes, understandably, like the doctors don't really know why he's on so much. It's confusing because he's such a tiny human to be taking 10 of these pills a day. But it is what it is. He's on chemotherapy. There's all sorts of different different things, but let's just go ahead and make sure he's safe for different things. So this is part of our conversation, right? So his body likely isn't going to produce that or oxytocin. The oxytocin portion of it, it doesn't make me feel so good because oxytocin is so important for our behavior and our mental health, but there's no hormonal supplement that he can take for that. And there's really no way to truly test this aside from drug administration. And it's just that sucks, but I don't really know what that means. Okay, so that's his posterior. His anterior pituitary is in charge of some other different hormones. So for the rest of his life, we have to see if that tumor has affected the anterior or just the posterior. So that's why he's going to be followed and working with an endocrinologist forever, right? Especially closely through puberty and in reproduction, because it affects all those different things. So number one, it affects your growth hormone. He's growing beautifully. In fact, he's growing so much that we're going to check some different things. Like he's 32 pounds. He was 24.4 pounds when he was completely emaciated in the hospital. He started at 27, dropped to 24. He's at 32.6 or something. So he is growing, right? Height wise, I have to check that. I'm still not sure. So that's beautiful. So they're not concerned with the growth hormone, but we will check it after chemo when he's 3 years old, and we'll continuously be checking that. The next one is your thyroid. Right? Controls your weight. A lot of you guys, does anybody on here have thyroid disease of any sort, hypo or hyper? If you know what a pain in the ass it is to be a 2-year-old with hypo or hyperthyroidism could be very challenging. We are going to check for hypo because that's where it's like you have a low metabolism because he is gaining so much weight. But it could just because the only thing he eats is protein shakes. Like he does have a little bit of ice cream cones and buttered noodles or pizza in between things, but like really his major form of nutrition is like 50 grams of protein, vitamins. So he's getting a lot of nutrients in these shakes. So that could be what's making him grow. But we're going to test for that this week. So that's good, right? So it affects your thyroid. It also affects so we have your growth hormone, your thyroid, your sex hormones. So when he's like 9 or 10, we have to see if his body's producing testosterone. That is something you can supplement if it's not, but it's a possibility. And then the biggest and like scariest one, I would say, is your cortisol. So cortisol is what your body releases when you're in extreme situations, right? It's what makes a mother be able to lift up a car if her baby gets under there. Like, and it's that superhuman strength. Not only is it that, but it's what allows your body to regulate itself if it's offered a ton of stress, right? It helps to lower your heart rate. It helps to manage your blood pressure. It helps to make sure your body can stay alive even though it's enduring a lot of stress. So cortisol, you don't take a daily dose of cortisol because that would be bad. So what happens is if his cortisol does end up being affected, which we won't know for a while. Right now it looks great. Like it was off the charts when we went through the hospital before, and he still has like what she called it appropriate toddler aggression, right? He's still like, I mean, he can be ornery. She's like, that's good. She's like, I would be worried if we walked in and he just like let me poke him with a needle. That would make me worried. The fact that he has that fight or flight in him is a good thing. Now, if your cortisol is affected in the future, you have to basically like have something on you stating that you have, oh yeah, hi, I did not know that, Krista. So if you have that on you, then, or like, and you get in an accident, they have to know to administer cortisol right away. I don't even know what that looks like. A shot, maybe. I'm assuming it's a shot. So it's like you're carrying that with you. So those are different functions of pituitary. Right now, where we're at with Whit and John is we're managing the ADH, the one that's the P hormone, and it's batshit nuts crazy. And even though the doctors don't love exactly what he has to do, she even said now, she's like, I understand this kid is not a textbook case because they've been doing textbook on him this whole time. Like, oh, but he should be administering this and this. And she's like, would I like him to have consistent medication? Yeah, of course we would, but he's not a textbook kid. She also referred me to the one doctor in Denver who would have the most experience with any sort of things with brain trauma related or tumor related. So we'll be seeing hopefully her next time, although I love this doctor and I'm continue to see her. And acknowledging again that because he's not normal, he is a rarity, that we'll be checking that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is they're going to check his thyroid because he has gained so much weight. They're also, because he is needing so much medication and he's still drinking and peeing, not really drinking that much, but he still is having an output, whatever, that they're going to look to make sure he doesn't have type 1 diabetes, but his glucose looks great, everything, but they are going to check his A1C next time, and just be checking for other things. So we're going to do that blood work this week. And then after chemo ends in September, October. We're not exactly sure yet. We'll wait till after our scans in July. Then we'll go ahead and start to try to monitor him as a normal child with a pituitary that doesn't function. How do you even say that, right? But we'll be able to like do more consistent following of him. Right now it's actually really consistent because we have all the blood work in there, because we're there all the time, so they have so much data. But we'll be able to look at it without the side effects of all the different drugs that this kid is on, right? It does take a long time. There'll be this like hemo hangover for us to get all those drugs out of his body, but then we'll be able to more closely manage. So my biggest thing is I prayed for positivity. I prayed for a connection with the doctor, and I prayed for some clarity on what's going to happen next. And I feel like I walked out of the appointment with that. And then I walked out with a relationship of a doctor who I could message and say, hey girl, I was just told I can't get my medication. That's blowing my mind. And she would completely support me on the path while making sure she's looking at things like, let's go ahead and make sure he doesn't have type 1 diabetes, or that his kidney's not also failing, which she said she's only seen happen one time. Like, to get the disease in both areas, your kidney and your brain, would be like wildly, once ever. So anyways, guys, I hope Amanda, I'm so grateful for doctors and medical professionals as well. If you learned anything, okay, so if you walked away with this conversation and you could tell somebody like something about the pituitary, what would it be? And the reason why I ask you to write that on there is because a lot of people are not going to watch 12 minutes of a video, but they'll scroll through your comments and they'll be like, oh, I didn't know that the pituitary, produced the sex hormone or growth hormone or thyroid. I didn't know that there was a posterior and an anterior. I didn't know there was P size right behind your brain. I didn't know that was supposed to light up and her son's not lighting up. Those types of things. So if you learned anything, just like regurgitate some of that information to me, because other people might read through it, and it is so supportive for other people, right? And if you know additional information like Krista here, that's amazing too, because I don't even know what the growth hormone would be, right? Because I haven't got to that point, Krista. So now you have additional information that other people don't have. Guys, I am jacked. I'm so excited. So we are in Heaven Week. We released yesterday. We are out and about. Yes, he is still extremely neutropenic, but he's not in the range where we stay at the hospital. So we still want to do life. So we're seeing people. We're doing stuff. We don't have chemo again until the 19th of June. And then we do scans in July. And I love you guys. Thank you for sticking with me on this journey, and for all of your desire to know about our family and what's going on, and for your increased education so that you can share about it, because the more that people know about things like LCH and AVPD, the more finances that can be brought into that community. Right now, they're trying to do studies. The Pituitary Foundation is trying to do studies on that oxytocin I was talking about, to see how many people with AVPD also are oxytocin deficient. And then maybe there's going to be a solution so that these humans don't have to, walking throughout the world without oxy would be, it's got to be, I'm glad I'm his mom. So I can try to keep cheerleading that kid, because he might need it. And all of you guys. All right. Let me hear what you guys learned. Love you all so much. Good morning, sunshines. Headed back from the gym, sweaty face. That feels good, right? Okay. Love you guys. Light and love from my car to yours. Bye.